Well, hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Darren Denham. I work at the University of Central Oklahoma, and I am the Assistant Director of Digital Accessibility. One of the things I get to do is work with staff and faculty to help make their content, their digital content, more accessible. I also run several accessibility micro-credentials, and I supervise and kind of guide and cheer on our Digital Accessibility Coalition, which is a group of about 30 members of staff and faculty throughout our campus who are accessibility minded and like to go into their own areas of influence and promote accessibility. However, today, I just wanted to talk about digital accessibility. You're not the imposter you think you are. And while a lot of us are very familiar with accessibility and the techniques and can do deep dives, I kind of wanted to start at a surface level and talk a little bit more about maybe folks like me who early on in the career wanted to do accessibility, wanted to do it in an exciting way, but felt like they didn't know enough or they couldn't make that impact. And so I'm going to try and change the slides now. Yep. How about switching it to on? Yeah. So I always like to start with what is digital accessibility. And if you're in this field or have dipped your toe into this field, you'll see a lot of different definitions. I tried to boil it down to the most simple way to express it. Techniques and tools that ensure people with diverse abilities, which is everyone, can access our digital content. And what that means is, however, we distribute content, very rarely, except for maybe surveys on the table, do we see paper come across our desks very often. Most of that content comes through Outlook or email or learning management systems. Digital content is the majority of the content that at least I deal with. So why it matters, statistics tell the story, and in Oklahoma, 614,800 of the 3.8 million individuals in Oklahoma reported one or more disabilities. That's 15.8% or more than 1 in 6 in Oklahoma. I encourage you to find statistics like this. This comes from the Oklahoma Department of Rehabilitation Services from a U.S. Census survey. You in your state may have different data, but when you're trying to make your case, having data helps this sort of project make sense. So why? Why are we doing digital accessibility? There's the Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 508 guidelines, web content accessibility guidelines, also known as WCAG or WCAG, international accessibility laws. So this is why accessibility exists in a lot of organizations, but the focus I really wanted to get to today is it's the right thing to do and everyone benefits. That's the approach that seems to make the most sense. And like Jennison said, threats and loud noise doesn't always make the case. So that's kind of where we're focusing on. Yikes, the slide says, digital accessibility sounds like a lot of work. Is that why we feel like we're imposters? Like we don't know enough. The knowledge isn't as wide as it should be. I can't make a difference. You can. And that's the good news. You don't have to know everything about digital accessibility to make a difference. And that's kind of the focus today. You are in good company. We have an image of books on a table and a field with a sunset in the background. And the quote on the screen says, I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find me out. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. That was Maya Angelou, American poet, civil rights activist. To me, when it seems like somebody who is strong and established like that feels like they don't know enough, they're not strong enough on their platform, it kind of gives me power to say, yeah, maybe I do know a little bit more than I think I do. So here we are. We can do this. You can do this. On this screen, I have people giving each other high fives. At times, digital accessibility can seem intimidating and complex. but with just a few changes in our workflow, we can make a big impact. That's not a quote. I said that, so that's not anybody famous. So what we're going to do today is go from 0% to hero 100%. This is a quote by Bill Drayton, social entrepreneur. The one single factor that determines society's success is the percentage of change makers within it. So we're going to be change makers, and we're going to focus on the percentages because sometimes numbers help tell the story. Before I go too far, there are multiple paths to the same destination. I know that Microsoft Accessibility Checker exists in Microsoft Word. It is a great tool. You can find it in the review pane across the toolbar. I've highlighted it in this image. You'll see that the review is circled. There's an arrow that points to the Check Accessibility button. And then below that is a pop-out screen representing the accessibility checker with some issues that are found in this document that I'll be talking about today. It's good, and it gets better. It seems like every couple of months I open up accessibility checker and there's something new in there. But this isn't really about accessibility checker or using these tools. It's using tools and techniques we should be doing anyway. I don't recall the last time I had any official Microsoft Word training. I probably did, but I think I taught myself. And maybe I taught myself back in the 90s, and then I just kind of kept doing it that way. And so what we're talking about is maybe a small change to your workflow, a small change to the way you do Microsoft Word documents that is really the way you should be doing it anyway, and the difference that makes. Now, the scores that I'm going to show you on the slides are inspired by Anthology Ally. That is a tool that works with learning management systems and websites that scores documents, goes through, gives accessibility scores, and tells instructors and web developers how to fix these issues. We're not using that tool today, really, and you don't need a tool like that, but I think the visual representation helps kind of make the case that we're doing work that is making a difference. So that, not a plug for Anthology Ally, but I really like it, but it's not the sort of thing you can just install in a browser. It's a more of a big platform. So on screen right now, we have an example of a scanned PDF. Has anybody ever encountered something that looks something like this? This is a crooked page with text slightly askew, slightly blurred out, words that can't be read, and what might be a picture of a puppy, but I can't really tell because it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. This has an accessibility score of 0%. I'm seeing some heads nod, probably online. Hopefully you're high-fiving and cheering. This is what we encounter on a daily basis. Unfortunately, it's a challenge. I don't even want to fix this. I don't even want to go near this PDF. Let's look at how we fix it. So the headline says nothing, just nothing. This is nothing. This is an image wrapped in a PDF pretending to be a document. Assistive technology cannot read this document. It treats it as an image, and since it's an image, there's probably not enough description if there was even alt text available. How do we fix it? You could either rebuild it from scratch or locate the original document. Let's say that we found the original document. If you have to rebuild it, great. It's much better than this scanned PDF. Maybe the next slide, please. All right. Well, the screen we're looking at here is a picture of that scanned image on the right-hand side, and on the other side it says scanned PDF. Now we're ready to go? Okay. So let's say I found the original document. It now has contrast issues, but our accessibility score has gone up from 0 to 16%. The document, as presented on this screen, has gray text over a white background, yellow text over a white background, orange and red text, and light blue text over a background. We do see a picture of a puppy at the bottom of the screen and a lot of words. So we've made progress. 16% isn't great, But just moving from a PDF to an actual Word document, it is readable. Assistive technology can read this. It can't navigate it well, but it can read it. And so we're making progress. This is good. But how do we make something out of nothing? Okay, we've got the original Word doc, but the challenges are going to be this color contrast that we have going on. Light text on a light background is going to be hard to read. If you've ever sat through a PowerPoint presentation that has yellow background with white text on it, that's painful. That's hard to read. So the good news is assistive technology can read this document but can't read it well. How do we fix it? We located the original document. Let's change the color of this typeface. So to do that, you can do my favorite command is Control A, select all. But there's also a command in Word to select all. It's called the editing tab. It's right adjacent to the styles. In this screenshot, we're looking at the styles menu at the top of Microsoft Word. Just to the right of it and to the bottom is the word select. You select that and there's a select all button. I've never used this, but I was excited to know it was there because not everybody does keyboard commands. So once you've selected all the text, let's just change it to black text. The simplest thing we could do is just change it all to black text. Control A, select all, go to the typeface menu, select black as the color. We've gone from 16% to 49% just from that one change we've made. It's not as pretty as it was, but it's much easier to read for the majority of our audience. Picture is still there. All the text is still there. So that's progress, 16%. Don't have to be an accessibility expert, just using Word the way it's supposed to be used. Even though we can do pretty fonts and light colors, you need to think about the audience who we're showing this to, who's going to be receiving it. Maybe they don't need all those fancy colors. So what's next? Headings. So this is our head start. On this screen, we're seeing our image on the right-hand side that has the black text with several paragraphs and the puppy on it. So headings need attention. We want to structure the headings similar to a research paper. If you've ever struggled through research or grad school, outlines are an important part of that process. I learned this through a class not too long ago. I've forgotten it since I went to college. But when you're looking at this, heading 1 is going to be the beginning of the document, and then we're going to move to heading 2, and then heading 3. And we want to do this in a consecutive order and not skip. We don't want to go from heading 2 to 4. We want to, and if heading 3 is the end, then you go back out to heading 2 and progress in that manner. So when I'm looking at this document, when I'm evaluating it, I'm looking for clues that maybe the headings in this document might not actually be headings. I see that the document starts with a smaller typeface, but it's in bold text. Below that is a smaller typeface for the word introduction. The second paragraph is in big text, and that might actually be a heading 1. If it is, it's in that style has been added in the wrong place. So just looking through this document, I'm seeing inconsistent styles that I know need attention. My thinking is I can fix this pretty quickly by getting rid of all the styles and then just starting fresh. Sometimes it's easier just to take all the styling away and begin again. So we're going to use the styles pane to apply headings, and we're going to edit the styles if needed. And down at the bottom of our slide, we have our progressive accessibility score from 0% to 16% to 49%. And what can we do? Go to the styles menu, highlight a word, highlight a sentence, and we're going to select heading 1. So in our screenshot, we've got the styles pane. There's heading 1 selected. I've got a call out just to the right of that identifies heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It goes on to 7 and 8, but really 6 is plenty. If you're going more than 6, you might need to start another document or format that in a different way. One thing in this screenshot that I didn't highlight, there is a remove styles option. So one of the things that I would do before even attempting to fix the headings is remove all the formatting, clear all the formatting out, and then go back in and start restyling it. So we select the styles, heading 1, and then we'll go on to heading 2. This styling enables assistive technology and screen readers to navigate this document properly. We'll skim the document. We'll find the information we want to look at and be able to select that when heading styles are present. So now we are looking at a document that pretty much looks like the same document before. It now has heading structure, and we are at 52%. So continuing to make progress, the score has moved from red to green at the 52%, but there's still work to be done. What's missing here is the picture is imperfect. It does not have alt text, the alternative text that tells the assistive technology what the image is, what it's about. It needs a description. Assistive technology is going to look for that, find that it's missing, not be able to convey the information about this image to the person who is experiencing it and using that technology. Also, we need to add the description that's appropriate for this image. The context is going to be important. There's a picture of a Yorkie dog on this page, and the text around it seems to indicate that this dog loves sunshine. So the article is about the dog and the things that the dog enjoys. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So picture this. The idea is to right-click this image, and I've got a screenshot of the Yorkie, whose name is Rosie. That's my pup. And you view the alt text from this pop-up menu. On this right-hand side of the screen is the pop-up menu pane that appears, and it actually tells you what alt text is and how to type it into this box. So we're going to see what information does this convey. If you'll notice, there's a button just to the bottom of the alt text that says generate alt text for me. So this is a machine-generated, AI-generated alt text. I went ahead and I selected that just to see what it would say, and it says, a small dog sitting in the grass. It's not wrong, but if my article was about how pretty the dog is coming back from the beauty shop, there's no description about her bows in her hair, the beautiful sunny day, the way her fur looks brushed and combed, and the pretty heart-shaped collar. These are things I might want to convey that the generated image text, alt text, does not put in there for me. So it's not wrong to use this, but it also is not exactly why I chose that image. So you chose the image for a reason, put why it's in that document, add that descriptive text. It's as simple as right-clicking the image, view alt text, and writing that description in. And remember, context is important. So we've updated the alt text, we've put the document in there, and now it's at 100%. Kinda. As Jennison pointed out earlier, accessibility is never 100%, and I completely agree with that. Even though this technology, and I like it a lot, says it's at 100%, I see some more issues. Now, I've got a screenshot on the screen, and I'm circling around several things that need attention. There's links that use the phrase click here. That's a problem because it's not telling the reader and the assistive technology where that link goes. It is vague. Below that, there is some text that is in bold, it's underlined, it's capitalized. Screen readers do not convey that information. I would talk about how we can communicate that sentence in another way that indicates importance without using visual cues for that. I see two sets of lists. Rosie's favorite things are naps, treats, and car rides. Another list, her least favorite things are baths, doorbells, and car rides that take her to the vet. Those look like lists, but they're not formatted as lists. We would actually want to use the tools that are built into Microsoft Word to properly format those as lists. So that's kind of what we're talking about in the how to fix screen. And then right below that, we have our accessibility score progression from 0 to 16%, 48%, 52%, and 100%. So that's why I'm shooting for 110%. It's good. We've made a lot of progress. There's still more work to be done. But even if we just did this, we've gone from 0 to 100 and made a document that was not accessible just by using techniques in Microsoft Word that don't require any special training, don't require any certifications, don't require a micro-credential. It's just things that we should be doing anyway in Microsoft Word. Yes, we can go beyond that, and we should always strive for that. That is our road to perfection, because we're making progress. I think you'll hear that phrase a lot. So that's where we have been, and this is where we've gone, and I think it's a great place to land on this because it's progress. So who can do this? The slide says, who, me? And on the right, we see a person standing on the edge of a mountain with arms outstretched, with clouds and a sunrise in the background, and it says, trust yourself. And we have a quote from Benjamin Spock, Dr. Spock, says, trust yourself, you know more than you think you do. This image was created by Bing Copilot. So I think you can do it. You just have to work these techniques into the process that you probably already do. And they're applicable in Microsoft Word, Google Docs, Pages, Outlook, any type of digital product, probably your learning management system, your web content management system. What you see, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, web editors. These techniques apply there as well. So these concepts for improving accessibility, just once you've worked it into the system, you can't kind of unsee these opportunities to make these improvements. So these easy steps equal quick wins, and digital accessibility benefits everyone. And we've got a puppy wearing a ribbon that says first place on it. So we're all winners when we strive for better digital accessibility. If you need to get in touch with me, if you have any questions, please feel free. My email is ddenham@uco.edu. Almost gave out my Gmail address. Or you can email accessibility@uco.edu. I've got a QR code for go.uco.edu/DA. It takes you to our digital accessibility webpage where you can get in touch and learn a little bit more about the programs we offer at UCO. Happy to take any questions or discuss anything.
All right. So while people are gathering their questions, I had a question for you, Darren.
Sure.
How did you get your start in accessibility? I remember when we were talking about you coming to speak here, you kind of have a pretty interesting background.
Yeah, my background starts in broadcasting. So I went to UCO and graduated with a communication degree and worked in broadcasting, writing marketing and promotions for local Fox affiliate. Eventually transitioned into a corporate environment where this thing called the web was starting to come along. Made a website in Microsoft Word and tried to convince my general manager that we should do an internet page. And it was like, what's internet? What's it going to cost us? Can we afford it? You know, this was like mid-90s. So anyway, I had an opportunity to come work at UCO when they were launching one of their online portals, and was able to transition that little bit of web work that I did into the website where students get their grades and go in, and we manage payroll and those types of things. And we started working on accessibility concepts there. And so I did that for about 15 years, and this opportunity came about to do digital accessibility all the time. And I couldn't have been more excited for that opportunity. So yeah, it was a different path but I think we all kind of have interesting stories that led us to where we are.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't notice, I'm still trying to rep our panel for tomorrow because you'll find that as you talk to more people who are in this room or outside this room, we just all come from really interesting backgrounds. I came from a library science background, had no idea I was going to land here. So it's just fascinating how people land where they are and like what cool skills they bring in. So looks like we have a question in the room. I'm going to pass it to Charlie.
Hi there, Charlie Watt, Department of Rehab Services. Since you're from a university, I'm just kind of curious. The DOJ, the national proposed rules, et cetera, password protected content, that exception. What are the universities saying about that part of the proposed rules?
I haven't worked with that specific aspect of it, so really can't speak to it.
Another kind of question related to that, like how, you're working with an administration at UCO, and I know a lot of institutions in Oklahoma are still kind of struggling to get buy-in, institutionally. What's your experience been with UCO? And have you seen struggles? And I know you came from within UCO, right? So,
Right.
Yeah, can you speak to that experience?
I think it's when you have an opportunity to promote digital accessibility at the university, partnerships are going to be the biggest factor to your success. Partnering with information technology, partnering with your equivalent of disability support services, library staff, academic marketing teams, your web marketing team. I work with these teams all the time and would never be able to accomplish what I've been able to alone. And I don't even feel like it's my accomplishment. It's our accomplishments together. The teamwork, just don't overlook that. If you don't have partnerships like that, go ahead and seek out the right team member and then see where you can build on that.
Okay, very cool. Thank you. We had a follow-up question coming up next to me, and she's like, well, you just answered it, so never mind. We do have a question online, so I'll pass it to Adam.
All right. So we have a question from Steve. He asks, how would you make those lists accessible that you showed?
If I had a chance to do an actual class, I actually do training on word accessibility, and it's about an hour or so. What I would do is I would highlight that list up in the toolbar on the home pane. You can look for the bulleted list icons, and there should be one with dots, one with numbers, and one with another different style, and select the one that's appropriate for that list. That will take it from a handwritten 1, 2, 3 list to a formatted 1, 2, 3 list. And just by selecting that formatting, it's coded behind the scenes as a list instead of three separate sentences of text. And you may have to go back and delete the 1, 2, 3 that was written there. But when you do this, but I have found with the asterisks, lists where it has an asterisk and then a sentence, when you make those into a list, that list will automatically format as bullets and the asterisk goes away. So it's a little inconsistent, but one of them saves you time and one makes you do a little extra work.
So when you originally began your presentation, you had mentioned that at UCO, you guys have an accessibility coalition that includes people from across campus. Can you kind of speak a little bit more about that, what it is, what you guys do, what that looks like how you created it? That seems really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, that is, I work in a department called CECE, it's the Center for E-Learning and Connected Environments. And in that division, they have a group of instructional designers. And so a part of what I do is working with them as they create content for their courses. And it came along that there needed to be maybe more of a focus of outreach of digital accessibility beyond this team. So what we started doing was creating a series of micro-credentials. So we have 3 micro-credentials, and the first one is called Digital Accessibility Foundations, and there should be some information on that website about that. And once they've taken Digital Accessibility Foundations, they become part of our Digital Accessibility Coalition. And at the moment, that group exists in Microsoft Teams, but I would say there's 30, probably more like going on 40, because we have a new cohort that just started the foundations. It's about 20 individuals from all across campus. What's exciting about this is it's all voluntary. Maybe a few have been voluntold, but no one really has to take it. They've all wanted to be a part of this Digital Accessibility Coalition. So it's just a grassroots movement. We started small with about 10, and they told a few friends and invited some friends to be in the next cohort, and we built on that. And we've built out the entire suite of micro-credentials. And so it produces a strong team. And those who have gone through the entire series of micro-credentials wind up making an impact in the area that they work in by identifying an issue, building a project plan, and actually presenting that and hopefully putting that into action. So, and every day, people who have taken these micro-credentials and trainings that we offer can go out in their everyday work and put the accessibility principles like we've talked about today into their work. And I even heard from one of our cohort members who works in the library, they'd sent a PowerPoint presentation out after giving it, and one of the recipients said, "Thank you so much for making that PowerPoint accessible." They would have never known probably that person needed that, but the impact that they had wider than they probably expected. So I know that's not all the nitty-gritty details, but I'd be happy to visit with you about that. And sometimes we do presentations on our Digital Accessibility Coalition. So.
All right, that's great. We have some more questions in chat, but just want to, remind people that in person, if they have a question, just raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. And we'll kind of bounce back and forth to give everybody time to answer or ask their questions. So the next one is from Anonymous. And they ask, some days I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall, trying to get administration to buy in to make sure that accessibility guidelines are followed across our site. They act like they just don't care. Maybe following guidelines doesn't necessarily make our site look as pretty visually as they like. For example, the headings are large and they want them smaller, etc. What do I say to convince them that it's the right thing to do?
That's a tricky one. And I think it kind of goes back to finding the right partner for that situation. I can't always make the case, but if I go into a room with somebody from IT who knows more about it than I do, the technical side of it, we can make an impact together. Or if we're going into a college and we need to make the case for why something needs to not have red text and bold letters in all caps, we can talk about color challenges and contrast issues. I think making the case would be better if you start small. And that kind of goes again to what was said earlier. Work on something that's accomplishable, and maybe it's not the entire website. Maybe you can start on the top 10 PDFs that are downloaded. Look at your Google Analytics or whatever analytics tool you find that gives you that data. Focus on those, make those accessible, especially if they have some sort of financial aspect, enrollment aspect. You can use that as making the case. You maybe ask how many people with disabilities come to the website, and the answer is that it shouldn't matter. And there's really no way to tell, but that's really not the question to ask. Question to ask, the statement is really more, how many people can we help? How many people are we not excluding? How many people are we not leaving out? I think if you can zero in on the right personal aspect, and sometimes it's statistics, and you may have those statistics, but I've always found that it's easier to make that case when you're able to zero in and use the right communication technique. And I know that's really vague, but if you think about, I got to make my whole website accessible, or I've got to make all the documents in our file share accessible, it's going to overwhelm you and you'll keep banging your head against the wall, and eventually you'll stop because your head hurts too much. We want you to keep going. So focus on attainable goals. That would be my recommendation.
All right, thanks.
My name is Karina. I think the technical response to what the person in the chat just asked is that the important part of all of this is providing the structure in the document, whether it be your Word file or your HTML file or whatever. And then you have with Word, you can edit the styles and you can make it look however you want, but keep the structure. And if you're working on the web, cascading style sheets do the same thing. They keep the structure, but allow you to make it look however you want.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
We have another question from Anonymous.
They ask a lot of questions.
They do. They're very, very good. Are UCO students learning to use Microsoft software to create accessible documents? In particular, they're thinking about all the research papers that are submitted to journals.
We have some initiatives that are being started by some graduates of our micro-credential that are focusing on accessibility kind of within pockets of certain departments. And those internship opportunities can hopefully get the word out about that. But it's a slow process, and I'm an office of one. So we do as much as we can, but I think the instructors who are inspired by accessibility I have met have started passing that on to their students. So as part of the classroom training on how to do these documents. So it's not across the board type of process. It's more of a little pocket here, a little pocket there. But slowly it's getting the word's getting out to the students.
That's great.
My name is Dax Castro. I'm an accessibility trainer, and I wanted to go back to that question that was asked on the web. We hear this all the time where we have people who are at the bottom, for lack of a better word, trying to grassroots accessibility and getting people to care. And I think the hardest part is we start with all the rules and we say, well, it's got to pass this and it's got to pass that. And managers, people in decision-making positions, they hear rules and the wall goes up. But what's so much more effective, at least has been in my experience, is when you can show them the barrier, when they can see. I don't know how many times I've shown someone a colorblind simulator and their content in that colorblind simulator, and they go, whoa, I never knew. But when we talk about use of color alone, right, the wall goes up and they just don't understand. So I would suggest to anyone who's having problems getting buy-in from their supervisors, try to come up with a way to demonstrate what that barrier actually is. And of course, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but no significant barrier is a great target to shoot for.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there is a lot of great tools out there. Browser plugins are a great resource.
That's true. Another anonymous question. How would you handle a request when a user asks to post a graphic of a chart or similar data onto a web page and making it accessible?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
That's
Yeah,
really easy.
that's a whole session unto itself. I have had the opportunity to talk to some instructors in situations like that. When we, for example, maps that have levels of color that represent topical, I'm not using the right term, but different levels of height of mountains and terrain. That instructor realized that the use of color was excluding some students from being able to understand the representation of the image. So we talked about how else we could do that, and he started using text. And the alt text was enough to explain the chart, but he added text below the chart that actually explained it in a way that all students could benefit from it, not just those that were using assistive technology. And I think that it's really the key is kind of to talk to them about their unique situation. I don't think every answer fits every situation, but finding a way to represent that information in another way or provide an alternate description of it that complements the image as long as we're conveying that information equally.
That's great. Good advice. Do we have any more questions in the audience? Okay, gotcha. Yep.
Hi, I'm Annette Underwood with Oklahoma School for the Blind. And I just have a quick question. Temp agencies have programs where you get taught on Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. Is there possibly a program where it would walk us through how to do this with Microsoft Word and everything. Do you know that you know of?
There's training available, I think, for pay or purchase, or people like me might volunteer to do something like that. So I don't know that there's a lot of YouTube videos and things like that, but those are varying quality. I think you would want to do some research, touch base with some pros who could direct you to the right resource for that. But yeah, it does exist out there. There's some really good quality training out there.
Thanks for that question. You actually gave us a great chance to plug some things that we have. So, as Oklahoma Able Tech, we do try to provide free resources out there for folks to learn about these kinds of things. We actually do have a new course catalog out there. And there's not a short link I can just say out loud, but if you go to our website on our digital accessibility page on the very right-hand side, they'll say course catalog. You can go there. We do have a course on Microsoft Word. So, there are lots of other resources out there, but we are one option, and we think we've done some really great stuff. We're really trying to focus on, simplifying and really making it to where you can kind of go through as a beginner and get through that. So thank you for the chance to plug that. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, we do. We have a question from Holly. They ask, are your micro-credentials open for the public to take as an additional tool for accessibility? And if so, where can we find them?
Funny you should ask. That's something we're exploring right now. So please feel free to get in touch with me if that's something you'd like to pursue. At this time, they're not, but we are very much in the process of figuring out if that's something we can do. Yes. Yes, with a little star by it.
I know you talked about tools earlier, Darren. What are some of your favorite tools to use when you're doing your accessibility work?
I really like, there's an app called Color Contrast Analyzer that is a great resource. It gives you an eyedropper and gives you color contrast readings that match up with the WCAG guidelines. There's some browser plugins like Dax mentioned that simulate color contrast and the different levels of color blindness that are great. Actually include that in one of our levels of our training, is that we talk about some of those. And I think on our website, I may actually have listed some of those. If not, it should be updated soon with that. So if you go to the Google Chrome store and put in accessibility, there's a lot in there. I wouldn't recommend all of them, but there's, I think, another one that focuses on heading structure that is really great. The name of it is not on the top of my head, but it's a good tool also, and is very surprising when you pull it up on some websites.
Any other questions from the room? All right, I feel like people are maybe out of questions at this point, so we'll go ahead and close out. They did ask you a lot, so you were a chance standing up there.
Lightning round.
All right, so can everybody give a round of applause to Darren?
Thank you.